Hi there everyone, Marc Laurenson here from Sydney Astrology School, and thanks for joining me as we look at episode 2 in our Sex and Intimacy series. And in this episode we're going to be looking at the sign of Virgo. Now, before I start, I just want to say that this is not just for people with the sun or the moon in Virgo. I'm more conscious of the houses that Virgo is in. And the fifth house, the house of play and enjoyment, and the eighth house, the house of deeper contact with other people, deeper shared contact with other people. They're the two houses that are geared more towards sex, okay? So when we're looking at Virgo in the chart, we're going to be looking at planets in Virgo in those particular houses. We're going to be also looking at Virgo on the cusp of those houses, and also Mars in Virgo. If you've got Mars in Virgo in your chart, you might relate to some of this as well, because Mars is a very sexually oriented planet, okay? So when we're thinking of the sign of Virgo, you might actually be going, oh, this is going to be an interesting one, because we're talking about the totem of the Virgin here, aren't we? And when we're thinking about virginity and when we're thinking about sex, we're thinking about possibly people who are quite arm's distance to the idea of getting close. But what I want to actually say is that Virgo and the understanding of the Virgin is played out very, very differently when it comes to understanding it, on a much, much deeper level. Virgo is a sign that is very, very body oriented. It is more oriented towards the body and how the body works than any other sign, closely followed by Taurus. But Taurus and Virgo see sex in two very different ways. I'm going to be talking about how Taurus deals with sex in a later episode. But I want to say that Virgo, when Virgo thinks of the body and Virgo thinks of sex, it's a little bit like the body being a temple and the body being something to be revered and looked after. The body is sacred to Virgo, and so sex becomes very natural for Virgo. Sex becomes very organic. It becomes the way the body works. Virgo understands the body on the level of health and how it can be improved, and all areas to do with making sure that the body is working in tip-top condition and functioning well. And so, therefore, sex comes into this. Understanding sex on that level, understanding sex and getting close to somebody and enjoying the actual physical side of sex can actually be quite therapeutic. I don't think a lot of people with strong Virgo in those particular houses are actually very conscious of this, but at the same time, throwing themselves wholeheartedly into sex and enjoying sex and getting the most out of sex is actually, I want to say, something that they're learning through. Virgo is as a sign of wanting to learn the practical ways of understanding something. Pulling something apart and putting it back together again is very Virgo. So therefore, getting engaged in sex and enjoying sex and understanding sex could actually be a major part of their self-development. It could be very, very healing. It could be very healthy for them, and it could be quite therapeutic for them as well. You often find a lot of people with strong Virgo in their charts, particularly in the eighth house, would go down that road of maybe sex counseling or sex therapies or sex modalities or ways of being able to help or serve people on that level as well. You can see it there. Now, this is really interesting because during the 60s, there was a major revolution happening. There was a huge sexual revolution, as well as others, of course, but the major thing was a sex revolution in the mid-60s that really changed the sexual landscape of our world. And it happened in the mid to late 60s and it went into the early 70s. Now, this is really interesting because at this particular time, we had Pluto and Uranus come into conjunction in the sign of Virgo. Okay? And so this makes me go down the road of everything that I've just said and understanding it on the level of coming into, I want to say, a more natural, organic version of what sex is supposed to be. Now, people born during this period of time, the Pluto in Virgo generation, which is roughly from 1958 to 1971, give or take a few months either side of that, they grew up in this. They grew up in a much more sexually liberated time. I'm one of these people. I'm a Pluto in Virgo generation person. And I remember as a child, I remember sex being around quite a bit. Um, and it was treated in a way where it was much more open. It was much more natural. It didn't feel like anything had to be hidden. It was an interesting time to grow up in the late 60s and very early 70s. So you get an understanding of Virgo actually coming at it from a much more, I want to say, a much more a place where there's nothing to be ashamed of, or there's nothing to feel guilty about. It's got a feeling of as I said, it's got a feeling of not really understanding it as something outside of what the body needs for its optimal use, for its optimal benefit. So a lot of Virgos, I want to say, can be highly sexual people. They really can. Or Virgo, not necessarily Sun or Moon in Virgo, as I said, but people who have Virgo in those houses could actually come into sex in a very, I want to say, volume turned up, high tuned kind of way. Um, Sex is for Virgo. I want to say that Virgo discriminates. Virgo is really good at being able to draw the line. It's very boundary conscious. So Virgo knows what it wants and what it doesn't want. Virgo is very good at being particular. So I want to say during sex or in sex, there might be a focus on particular things that it likes to do or particular areas of the body that it really wants to hone in on. So you might find that with Virgo. You might find Virgo kind of going, not there, here. That kind of thing. Or there might actually be something a little bit more on the refinement or the detailed side of what makes them happy in this particular area. And they might also be looking for it in you as well. They might also be looking for which is the part of you, which is the area of you that I can really that I can specialize in, or I can actually go right down to the nitty gritty in, and to be able to pleasure you in a way that you need, that your particular way that you find important in this particular area. Mercury comes into this as well because Mercury is the ruling planet of Virgo. There might be a little bit of overthinking going on here in the sexual side of things, the mind getting involved a little bit too much. The whole idea of perfectionism comes into this as well, where you're thinking, am I good enough? Am I going to be what they want? And sometimes it can actually go the other way around too. Sometimes it can actually go down the road of this person isn't good enough for me, and it'll be some small nitty gritty kind of incidental thing that they might get hung up on in a way that might get in the way of their enjoyment of that other person, or allowing themselves to totally give themselves over because they're just a little bit too conscious of the smaller, more myopic details. What I find really interesting about Virgo too is Virgo governs the stomach area. And so I often find that is a very sensitive area for Virgo. Some people might call it an erogenous zone of sorts. But I feel that, if you're in a spooning situation with Virgo, I think that if you cuddle them around the stomach, I think that would be really beautiful for Virgo to receive. Virgo, as I said, feels from their stomach. Everything is going on down there for Virgo. So it's a very, very sexual area as well. So doing things to the stomach and with the stomach and giving love and care and cuddles around the stomach could actually be one of the things that the Virgo energy would really love. Uh, Service, we all know Virgo and service. Virgo has to be careful of becoming a servant in a sexual relationship to somebody else. That could actually go down an unhealthy path. But I want to just mention a little bit about the play side of this is that a good Virgo friend with Virgo in the eighth house, Virgo sun in the eighth house, has a maid out in her wardrobe that she pulls out every now and again and plays the maid in sexual situations. How funny is that? That is so Virgo, isn't it? You know, playing the housekeeper maid. So that's a bit of fun. That can be a bit of fun in sexual situations. So I want to say that Virgo is not the Virgin at all. In fact, quite the opposite. And as I said, a lot of people with strong Virgo energy, particularly in those houses that I mentioned, may not necessarily be consciously understanding sex on this level. But when they do go into sexual situations, they're always going to be wanting to throw themselves into sex, I want to say wholeheartedly, and give it their all, because Virgo is always going to be about self-improvement. Virgo is always about how can I become better? How can I reach a point in my life where I'm feeling I'm doing the best that I can do? And sex will definitely come into this. So therefore, you know, being a sexual partner, allowing sex to run through their lives easily, naturally, organically, I want to say spiritually, would be wonderful for Virgo, and understanding it on that level for Virgo, because it is a God given part of who we are. And I think that Virgo really, really understands that.